Hey guys, welcome back to Board Together Games. Today we're going to be looking at a light family game called Granja no Siesta. It's for 1 to 4 players by Stronghold Games, designed by Andreas Odendahl. Let's get down to the table, because there's no sleeping in farming.
Welcome everybody to Board Together Games. My name is David.
And I'm Ryan.
Board Together Games is our YouTube channel, which is designed to bring quality board game content to people who are new to the board gaming hobby and also for families, right?
Yes.
And today we're going to be looking at our favorite roll and write game in this house. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. It's called Granja no Siesta, or Granja no Siesta. And this game that we're looking at today is, in my opinion, and I think your opinion, an excellent example of a quality family-style board game. This particular game is a roll and write game. What does that mean? To put it simply, think Yahtzee. Yahtzee was actually the very first roll and write game, at least that I know of. And what that means is you're going to roll dice and then use those dice to mark off things on a piece of paper or a player sheet. Granja no Siesta is a 1 to 4 player game that is published in North America by Stronghold Games and is designed by a gentleman named Andreas Odendahl. I think he goes by Odie as kind of a nickname. And Ryan is now going to tell us how to set this game up.
To set up, give each player a player sheet and the discs and their board to their corresponding color, and their 6 helper tiles. Put the Siesta board and the market board in the middle of the table, and put 1 disc from each player on the starting space at the Siesta track, and set the roof tiles off to the side. In the game, you're going to use the number of dice equal to the number of players times 2 plus 1. For example, in a 3-player game, you're going to be using 7 dice. Give the pig to the starting player, and then you can begin the game.
Granja no Siesta is played in a series of rounds, and in each one of those rounds, you're going to take the dice and you're going to roll them. The start player is. And then that start player is going to draft one of those dice and bring it over to their section of the table. Clockwise around the table, each player is going to do the same thing. Take 1 die, drafted from the pool, and then when it gets back to the start player is going to take the remaining dice and roll them again and draft a second die. And then each other player is going to draft a second die as well. And then when you're finished, you should have 1 die left over, and that die is going to be shared amongst all players. So what do these dice do? Well, I'm glad you asked. The dice have 6 unique faces on them. Each die is the same. They have the same 6 faces. Those faces are pig, donkey, siesta hat, coin, grape, and then the final face is a shared face that has both wheat and olives on the same face. So when you draft any one of these dice, you're going to bring it over to your side of the table, and then you're going to take your marker discs here, and you're going to mark the corresponding section on this board here to whatever that die face is. So for example, if I draft a hat, I would then take a disc and mark it right here, where the little hat space is on my board. So each of these die faces gives you a resource, with the exception of the one that has 2 resources on it, which is the side that has the wheat and the olive. If you draft this die face, you're actually going to use 2 of your discs and mark both the olive and the wheat on your player board. If you ever run out of discs when you're drafting dice, then you unfortunately will have to decide which of those resources you're going to mark, because you are limited by the number of discs that you have in your possession at any given time. So when the round is finished, everyone then transfers the discs and the resources that they are marking onto a spot on their player board or their player sheet, and then a new round can begin. The player sheets themselves are divided up into different sections, and I'll explain what each of those sections does a little bit right now. The top left corner is the roof tile section. In this section of the player sheet, you must fill in the dots corresponding to the coins, and you can only use coins to fill in these circles on your player sheet. They must be filled in from left to right. And as soon as you finish any given section, then you can take a roof tile. You draw one randomly from the pool out in the center of the table, and then you bring it over to your section, and it shows you either ability or resource that you'll be able to take advantage of at a later point in the game. When you use that ability, you can flip it over, showing that it's used, and then it's done. And the things that are on these roof tiles could be anything from double resources to the ability to move some of your discs on your player board, victory points, all kinds of interesting things like that. In the upper right-hand section of the player sheet, you have the long-distance shipping, long-distance trade section, yes. And in order to fill in any one of these circles, you must have 3 of any given resource, of the listed resources, in order to do that. When you complete that on a given round, you will then fill in the little circle, you will gain a commodity, and you will score 2 points at the end of the game. Anytime you see the orange circle with the yellow number printed in it, that means victory points, right? So anytime you fill in a section of your board that lists a number like that, that's points you're going to score at the end of the game. In the middle area of the player sheet is what you call the helper section. This is where you're going to gain different special abilities as the game progresses. And those correspond to the 6 little tiles that are above the player sheet. This is in the basic game. Each player has their own helper tiles, and when you complete any given section, you will then take a helper tile and place it on your player sheet, showing that you now have the ability to use that for the rest of the game. And those abilities can be anything from moving your player discs on your player board, giving you more flexibility when you're drafting dice. They could give you the ability to draw extra roof tiles and then choose the ones that you want, which is more flexibility there. The ability to not use donkeys when you do in-town deliveries, which I'm going to discuss here in just a second, among other things. In the lower left-hand section of the player sheet is the warehouse and the stable. The warehouse is where you can keep overflow goods of olive, wheat, and grapes, and the stable is where you're going to keep overflow pigs and donkeys, which coincidentally is our nickname for this game, pigs and donkeys.
Pigs and donkeys.
And basically what that means, if you don't have a better place to put any one of those resources or objects that you've drafted on die faces, that's going to be a place where you can put them to score some extra points at the end of the game. And finally, at the lower right-hand section of the player sheet is the carts area. This is another section where things must be filled in a specific order. So for each one of these 3 rows, you must fill in the resource circles from left to right. Also, in each one of these cart rows, you'll notice on the left is a space where you can mark donkeys. So when you draft donkey die faces, you will mark these off here. But there is a special ability that I spoke about a second ago that will allow you to not have all those donkey resources or donkeys filled in order to successfully complete that delivery. So when you complete any one of these rows on the lower right-hand corner, you will do a couple of things. You will gain the points associated with that row, and if you're the first person to do it in the game, you're going to gain the larger number of points, and then any player thereafter is going to be able to gain the smaller number of points in that orange circle. You're also going to gain a commodity, and you're going to have the ability to take one of your resource markers, your discs, and place it out here on the market board, which is another way to get extra points at the end of the game, depending on what you are focusing on while playing the game. So as you're taking these die faces, you're going to be marking these sections off on your board with corresponding resources and livestock that you're gathering. And when each round is finished, you gather up all the dice. The start marker pig passes to the left, clockwise around the table, and a new round begins. The commodities are interesting. So when you gain a commodity, it can stand in for any other resource in the game other than a Siesta hat.
Other than, yeah.
It cannot be used in the round that you acquire it. You have to wait till a subsequent round in order to use it. So that's very cool. So getting the long distance trades completed and getting these cart rows completed are the ways that you get those commodities. The Siesta hat is also interesting because not only are there places on your player sheet in which you can use them and fill in certain spots to complete different objectives, but you can also use a Siesta hat when you draft it to move up the Siesta track. This is where you're going to gain extra player discs as the game progresses, because if you're doing the carts, you're giving yourself the ability to gain more points at the end of the game by losing a player marker. And remember, if you don't have a marker to mark resource that you have drafted, then you can't take it. So you'll want to definitely move up this Siesta track in order to gain more discs as the game goes on. So play will pass clockwise around the table, round after round, each player taking turns, rolling the dice, drafting dice, marking resources off on their boards until any one player has been able to move their player disc all the way up the Siesta track and reaching this final space. That triggers the end of the game. You finish out the final round. You count up victory points for each player, and whoever has the most points is the winner. So we have had this game in our family for quite a while now, right? And I would say that this is one of the games that has received the most play.
In our family.
In our entire collection. So why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's just simple, and we can break it out, and everyone just enjoys to play it.
Yes. I think you're absolutely right. It's a combination of things. It's the ease of play. It's the simplicity of play. Don't get me wrong. Simple doesn't mean that it's mind-numbing. There's enough strategy here to make this game quite compelling, and yet it's simple enough to teach anyone. So the components are cute.
Yes.
They're very well done. As with most roll and writes, you are kind of limited by the fact that there are a limited number of sheets in the game. However, we've played this game a lot, and we still have a huge stack of these remaining. In fact, this is one where I will probably take the time to take some uncompleted sheets, get them laminated, and then put some dry erase markers in the box. We play it enough, and I think we'll own it for a long enough time that I think it's going to be warranted. I really like the fact that even though I don't always do this, you can change strategies from game to game and try different things out. Maybe I focus on the roof tiles for this game and see how that roof tiles and something else. Typically, you want to try to focus on 2 things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the luck of the die rolls. There's a little bit of luck involved, but there's quite a bit of strategy.
My thing that I usually go for is the in-town trades.
In-town trades, yeah. And with the carts?
Yeah, the in-town trades and the helpers are the ones I usually go for.
Yeah, I definitely go for the helpers. Typically, in any given game, I will finish all the helpers because there are some points to be had, and also those abilities can be quite powerful and really give you some flexibility in the rest of the game. So we've talked about this game quite a bit on our channel. We figured it was finally time to sit down and do a real review for this game. It is a quick game, so it doesn't take forever to play it. It's just long enough, I think. If it was any longer, it would be too long. If it was any shorter, I would feel like it was just there wasn't enough time to really get anything done. That being said, the game can also be ended early, right? If you really think that you're in the lead in other areas, you can just start taking hats, and run yourself up the Siesta track, because you do get a point for every space you have moved up on the Siesta track as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's quite a few ways to get points. There's the Siesta track. There's the market board where you're going to get an extra point for any of the different categories that you focused on during the course of the game. You'll get points for doing some of the helpers. You get points for the carts. You get points for everything. How do you think you can best utilize and leverage the dice that you're taking to work the best for you and win? The game is phenomenal.
I agree.
It is, I guess my only real gripe is that a couple of things with the dice. The first thing was that you have to put stickers on the dice when you get the game, which is kind of a bummer. However, I will say with as much as we played this game, they have stayed on there. None of them are peeling or anything, and we've played this game quite a bit. The other thing is that I like the fact that the dice are the rounded dice because I feel like they roll better, but they are wooden dice and they're quite light. I don't know, I just feel like there's just not a whole lot there as far as heft to these things.
Well, I guess if you're using multiple dice, it would be better in your hands.
No, that's true. But to me, these wooden dice have always just kind of been a little bit, they're just not my favorite.
But everything else you like?
I love everything else. Yeah, I think it's really well done. I think it's designed well. It's nice and colorful. It's just got a nice, relaxing, calming feel to it. It's this whole thing with farming. I don't know what it is about farming in games that I am drawn to. Pigs and donkeys. It's great. Is there anything that you don't like about it?
It's hard to find a complaint for this.
I have a feeling that's going to lead to a relatively high number in just a minute here.
Yes, it will.
Okay, we're at ratings, and again, ratings are the thing that we would advise you to put the least amount of stock in when it comes to watching a video from Board Together Games, because as we all know, a rating is an opinion, and our opinions are going to be different from somebody else's opinions. Take it with a grain of salt. Having said that, I'm going to let you go first. What do you rate this game?
9.
9. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
Typically when we are going to review a game, it's because we like it quite a bit.
Yes.
I find it difficult to justify the amount of time that goes into creating a video, doing all the editing for a game that I am not a huge fan of. So if we're doing a video, typically it's going to be a good game, something that we're going to highly recommend. But 9 is very good. Well, I'm going to push the envelope and say 9.5. I'm going to stop just short of giving it a 10 because to me, perfection is kind of almost unattainable.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But I do highly recommend it, highly enjoy it. I will never turn down a game of La Granja no Siesta if someone asks me. There are other games that I would play in its stead. However, when it comes to the role that this game is trying to fill in that scenario, this is definitely at the top of my list of games that I would choose to play. So let's talk family friendliness. What do you think I'm going to give this game for family friendliness?
10.
You would be right. 10 is absolutely correct because it goes along with everything we're saying, which is that this game is wonderful for families because it's just a cute little theme of farming and trying to build up your farm by gathering livestock and growing wheat and olives and grapes. And the fun factor is there. This is something that very young kids can wrap their heads around. The idea of rolling a dice, okay, now it's your turn, you get to take one of these dice, and whatever it says, you're going to mark it on your board, and then you're going to make a little mark on your paper with your pencil that corresponds to that, and if you do this, it's going to give you these points. Very simple concepts for people to understand, especially younger kids. I don't think they'd have an issue with it at all.
Nope.
The artwork, the pig first player marker, how can you go wrong? So because of all of those things, easily a 10 out of 10 for family friendliness. And that's going to wrap it up, everybody, for La Granja No Siesta, which is a lovely little game that, of course, we highly recommend. I mean, I have to say it. It's my favorite roll and write game that's on the market right now. And if you like what we're doing here at Board Together Games, we would appreciate it if you would take a minute to click on the like button down below, subscribe to our channel, click on the little bell notification icon, because that's how you're going to know when we upload new content and put new reviews and fun things on YouTube. And also leave a comment and let us know how you think we're doing here. Positive comments, negative comments, we accept all kinds. We appreciate constructive criticism. Also take a minute to check us out on social media. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we have a website, and we try to be active on all of those things, although it doesn't always work out that way. We are going to be tweeting at Origins coming up here in a couple weeks, right?
Yes.
Ryan might even be doing some tweeting, some tweety birding. Tweets? So check us out at all those places. And we really appreciate you guys taking the time out to watch this video and spend some time with us today. And remember, if you are bored together,
Board together.
We'll see you next time.
No.
Nah. Brian, do you like this game?
Yes, I do. Oh, I get it now.
Takes him a little bit.
Oh.
So play will play. Don't do that. Done.